Hey everybody, this is Croy here with the Average Bros Gym podcast, and I just wanted to hop on and make a kind of a disclaimer as well as kind of a clarification. So I think that in this episode we discuss COVID quite a bit, obviously. It's kind of the part of the title. And we talk about kind of how it affected our routines as well as kind of what we were doing during the lockdown and shutdown and things like that. So I think there are some points that we tried to make, but they didn't get across very well, and that is on us as well. We want to make sure that in any conversation, it is up to that person to, you know, get the message out that they want to get out, right? I think our idea was, or our message was that, like, if you are a more physically fit person, if you keep yourself more physically active as far as cardiovascular, strength training whatsoever, you're going to have maybe better health outcomes post contracting COVID. And, that can be true, but also if you get COVID, you get COVID. And there are a lot of people that are incredibly healthy, regardless of what they do. And this illness, this sickness really wipes them out in a lot of ways. And a lot of people are experiencing long-term effects from this, both in terms of their daily routine as well as, of course, their athletic and fitness routine. So it in no way bars you from getting it, or again, it in no way makes it so that, you can't contract a bad sickness and bad case of COVID, right? So I wanted to get that out of there. I think our point that we were trying to make wasn't quite handled well by us, and that definitely reflects. So I also wanted to talk about a little bit about making comparisons to the Civil War. What I was trying to imply was that there wasn't a clear divide like there was, but I think anytime you introduce rhetoric about the Civil War, I think people lose sight of that, and lose sight of kind of what it actually stands for and means. I don't want anything I say to be used to in any way diminish what the Civil War is about at all. So I just want to make that very clear that I'm going to leave the episode in its entirety. You can listen to it, and I think there's good conversation to be had. But at the same time, definitely want to make sure that you are listening and thinking, hey, this person, said this in this public space, and it's always okay to make mistakes as long as you then you acknowledge that and make sure that you are correcting them for the future. So thanks y'all for listening. I really appreciate it. But just wanted to make sure that we stated that on the record and it's out there. So appreciate you listening, and thank you so much again. Yeah, Croy, thanks. Bye.
Because I used to be like into whiskey or bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been like my typical go-to, and I don't even know why. I feel like it was just I don't know.
You're trying to be a man.
Yeah, I think it was because I was watching Peaky Blinders at the time, and I just felt
Oh.
like I just needed to be like Thomas Shelby.
Blinders.
Yeah, Peaky fucking Blinders.
No fucking fighting.
It was always
fighting. No, I can't.
Oh
do the
yeah,
accent.
it's like
All right.
It's feel like as if they spelled like fucking, it would be like FOO. It's like fucking, no
All
fucking.
right. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Hold on. All right.
All right.
This is the way things are going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my foot in your ass. You're going to give me the money, and you're going to get out of here.
That's pretty good.
Arthur, I'm trying to get the accent down.
Who's Cillian Murphy? Fucking dude, he is so good.
Right. He's a great actor.
Yeah,
He's
I always
Irish.
wanted their haircuts too. I thought the haircut looked dope.
I think a lot of people thought the haircut was super dope.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah,
When that
yeah.
first
Yeah.
season 1 came out, oh man, people were popping off the haircut.
That was So I think that was such a good. I think they're finishing it up with a
A movie.
movie. Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Average Bros Gym podcast.
Well, now you went real Irish on that one though.
No.
You went really.
Scottish. No, I can't do it.
Yeah. What is Birmingham?
Birmingham. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it
the
is, right?
Birmingham accent is, I think it's Midlands perhaps, or
Maybe
like
that's
it's kind of like it's like central England kind of. It's like north of London. But there's like a specific accent that they do that I don't know. I think like in the show, I think there's only like one of the actors actually like from that area, so can actually like, do the accent really well.
Is
Like
it Arthur?
that's an accent, but it's like not. It's like outside of Birmingham. There's a guy on Instagram, and I think this is called the accent guy, but he does this stuff, and like so he like goes through his accents, and he's got like some really specific ones that he does, but the kind of the Peaky Blinders is one of them, and like he just does the Thomas Shelby one.
So it's first thing I pulled up here is like Cillian Murphy, if I'm pronouncing that right, has revealed how he mastered a Brummie accent for his lead role as Tommy Shelby on Peaky Blinders. Yeah, so like Birmingham, yes, whatever.
Yeah, I mean if you guys are from Birmingham, you can let us know if we're doing it right.
See, I feel like that's
I
close.
know I'm not doing it right.
That's fascinating to me, is like how some actors and actresses can just like a fucking chameleon, how they can get into like a role or like switch their, I don't know, psychology, their voice, and how that completely changes. And you're like, how the,
It's a
how do you do
practice.
that?
I mean, like it's
An art. Oh, I get.
think
Yeah,
of,
it's
think
an
of like
art
how
form.
much you exercise. Like they do the same thing with like acting and like changing their vocal pitches and tones
That's
and changing the way they do things. And hello, everybody, welcome to the Average Bros Gym podcast, where your hosts with eerily similar names, Kory and Croy, walk you through fitness, health, and life advice, which seeks to meet you where you are at. No polarizing black and white takes, no threatening you and telling you the only way to do things, just genuine advice and good conversation. And
10 out of 10. Right
thank you. I read that off of the script that I had wrote. In the last episode, I tried to do an intro that was, I just fucking spaced. I just forgot how to do that.
Oh, go back and listen to that one. It's great.
No, yeah. Well, go back and listen to that for many reasons.
Oh, yeah.
My intro is not the reason to listen to that episode. But
Top 3?
the episode?
Oh, no. I meant like, I mean like maybe an aspect of the episode. At least it'd be like maybe top 3, a part of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
No,
No,
you don't even
no,
think?
no. Like,
Okay.
I probably
All right.
the bottom half, if that. We're here back with some more fitness action. Man, as soon as I get a beer in my hand, I'm just ready to rock and roll. What is that? That's bad, isn't it? Is that alcoholism? is that no, it's not. But we're ready to rock, team. I appreciate you
And
listening
roll.
to us today and roll. Yes. And Kory, I don't know. Like we can talk about a lot of things in this episode. Peaky Blinders being one of them. I have not seen the most recent season, but I do remember watching it religiously. Do love Cillian Murphy as an actor. He's also, of course, in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
He
In
is.
Batman.
He was in Batman.
He was also he was in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, because he was also in
Inception.
well, yeah, oh, good. Oh, yeah, shit. Yeah, you're right.
Inception.
He was in that as well, but then he was also in the war. There was a war movie. Dunkirk.
Yes,
Yeah.
Dunkirk, great movie.
I feel like it's almost like he was being groomed by, and I think okay, actually I don't think, I almost
shouldn't use
positive I
that phrase,
know.
but yeah.
But it was like a behind the scenes thing with like when they did Oppenheimer, and Christopher Nolan talked specifically about working alongside Cillian Murphy.
Well, dude, that's
and-
like Scorsese and DiCaprio.
yeah, it's just like, well, and like seeing the growth of him as an actor. Like Nolan had said something along the lines of like one of Cillian's first roles was in Batman Begins, like the very first one in that whole trilogy. Actually, I think right with what's the
Yeah,
other
it was
guy?
one of his first like kind of big like American roles, because he was in he's in a lot of stuff like back in Ireland. He was in a movie called like I think the wind that shakes the barley, maybe about
Oh, wow.
I believe the Irish Civil War, could be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, he's I mean he's been around for a while, but yeah, as far as like American audiences, they probably know him from that, and also like maybe a couple other movies he was in. He was in Red Eye with like Rachel McAdams,
Okay.
and like around that same time. I'm missing something probably, but
Yeah.
continue.
Oh, well, but yeah, that was like his like they talked about, or Nolan, I should say, talked about seeing his performance in that, and then wanting to integrate him into following works that he was in on, and then ultimately kind of groomed him up to then that lead role that he was with in Oppenheimer, where he absolutely crushed it.
How could I forget 28 Days Later? One of my all-time favorite movies.
Vampire movie.
Brendan Gleeson, Naomi. I want to say Naomi Watts. It could be Naomi Campbell. Forget her last name, but she's been in a lot of stuff. And Cillian Murphy's 2002. It was early on. Danny Boyle directed flick. Well, it was like so. It's a zombie movie. It was one of the first zombie movies that was like popular, I believe, to popularize like the infection rather than like the zombie bite of like just turning undead. Like obviously Romero has been around since the 70s. No, more than 60s.
Wow, I don't think I've seen this.
Yeah,
A group of misguided animal rights activists free a caged chimp
it's infected
infected
with
with
rage, bro.
rage virus
Literally
from
rage.
medical research. This sounds like COVID.
Probably. Well, it's rage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it is. It's
Some lab released shit that just goes
Yes.
in and infects the human
so
race.
great movie. I might have even talked about it on the podcast before. I feel like I probably did, but no, it's a great movie. Cillian Murphy's in it. That was the first time I think I'd seen him as an actor. They made a couple sequels, but this I think was the only one that he was in. But it's very British. It's very like kind of like gritty, not a lot of. I think the close-ups are kind of really. They're not like glamorizing, I guess is the best way to put it. Like they're not like the characters are all kind of like disheveled and like they're very I don't know like the good word for it, but it's like a gritty like movie. Danny Boyle did like I think Train Spotting, if you ever seen that one. Again,
Heard of
very
it.
British. It's just very
Heard of it.
yeah. But good movie and Cillian Murphy's in it, and that was one of the first times I think I seen him as an actor. So and that was 21 years ago, I believe, somewhere around that range. So.
Jeez. Yeah, the whole zombie movie, I like that one. I don't think I've seen, but like, what was the latest one with like The Last of Us, or I think I Am Legend is also a zombie movie. Or is that vampires? Or
So we have to actually talk about
I
this
know.
on episode 3.
Yeah, was that?
This is we're touching on it again.
Yeah,
I mean, I think they were like infected,
something. Yeah.
kind of like where it's like, so the idea behind 28 Days Later is like there is a virus that is just rage. So it's like they're not even so like in the movie. It's not like they're not even eating people. They're just like basically pummeling them to death, and like biting them and shit. Like they're like raging on them, but like they're kind of like blood like splaying everywhere. I don't know. But they're infected with a rage, and like they're like just think of like you being consumed by it. So they're not like conscious really. They're just attacking.
Okay.
But one of the like it was I think the first movie or maybe one of the first movies that had, because they were not really like the undead, they were like living people, but they were just really mad. And so like the zombies quote unquote in the movie are like sprinting, like all out sprinting after
Like some
which is
Usain Bolt shit.
horrifying. Yeah, so
The
that
worst
was
ones.
so it's a good movie, man. You should definitely take a look at it.
Well, I feel like we've all kind of like, in a way, de facto gone through our own little like apocalypse with COVID. Like you had, I mean, kind of that same route where it's like, all right, now you got this like, I mean, in a weird way, it's like, all right, there's people that are infected. You don't know like who's infected, but you got to like stay in and like only can be in your little safe space. Like don't go outside. But if you are outside, like you got to stay like 6 feet away or something like that.
Thank God we never gave each other COVID.
Oh my God. Like that was
Corey
such
and
a fucking weird time.
Dude, that was
such a
it was
weird
fun
time.
for us in a lot of ways. So if this is our COVID story episode. So Corey and
Oh,
I
this would be good.
both worked at Orange Theory. So we both work at a gym, and obviously March 17th of 2020, which is St. Patrick's Day. I always remember that day because I went in for a workout, and I was wearing like all my St. Patrick's Day shit, and I knew it was closing, but I was kind of like, I'm just gonna YOLO it. 'Cause I love St. Patrick's Day.
You do.
If there's anything about me you must know, it's that I love Halloween and St. Patrick's Day. Those are my two favorite holidays. I like Christmas too, but and so Corey and like so at CrossFit Kingfield, I was able to rent out or loan a kettlebell and a dumbbell. So I had 2 pieces of equipment, a kettlebell and a dumbbell. And Corey and I worked at the same place. We both got furloughed. Like we were on unemployment. We did get to keep our health benefits, which was great.
Yeah.
So we still had our health insurance, but we were both, on unemployment throughout that time, the 3 month. And we would get together outside and just go hit the gym, and we'd go in my basement a little bit and hit the weights, and like we'd just do workouts outside.
I remember that was like my first COVID purchase was a barbell.
Barbell and plates.
It was a well, and the only plates I could fucking find were like 55s. So there was no warm up. It was like either you got a 45-pound bar, or you went right to 155, and it was like, man, it's like
Which you can do for some things.
oh
But yeah.
yeah. It's like you wanted to warm up on like some deadlifts or something. But yeah, it was just so interesting not being able to go to it was so odd to me that they would shut down so many different areas of business, but one thing that like they could keep open would be like liquor stores and shit, and yet like gyms were shut down. It was like, what the fuck is that? Like, why would you shut down gyms? One of the only things that people can do to better their mental, emotional, and physical health and well-being, and now you're shutting that down at like a certain crisis. And I know like when it first popped off, like there were so many questions and everything else going on, but that one just baffled me. And then we had to try to resort to means of, all right, now I gotta load up my fucking backpack, which is like random books, or I have to go out to the park. And I mean, you had to get really fucking creative.
Yeah, we did Murph that year. We did so the CrossFit workout Murph was named after Lieutenant Michael Murphy, I believe, was killed in action in Afghanistan, 2005.
Lone Survivor being the movie in the book.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize that. Didn't realize I remembered all those details either. But yeah, R.I.P. to Michael Murphy. but so the workout was kind of developed with him in mind, then kind of became like a placeholder for like all fallen soldiers and as people that have served the country. That's kind of, it's all done Memorial Day every year,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's kind of how like CrossFit gyms across the world kind of, like maybe across U.S. maybe I guess maybe across the world, but across the U.S. kind of honor this man or honor kind of that memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a 1 mile run. It is followed then a 1 mile run in a weight vest. You don't have to wear a weight vest, of course, but that is kind of like the RX or as prescribed
Mm-hmm.
exercise. You then proceed to do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 air squats. Correct?
Yep. And then followed by.
Another mile run.
Yep.
So that's the workout. Kory and I did that at a park with children playing. Like that
Oh my
year.
God, yeah.
We
Oh my,
did.
yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the other time that we did Murph, but I was like, that the whole gym was
Memorial
everything
Day
else was open.
2020
Right?
because the shutdown was from March through like early mid June.
What the fuck did we do for pull-ups?
We had a bar at the park, bro.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
How
it was
do
just
I
fucking
not?
like, it was like like have like the, I don't know what they use that, like kids use those bars for, but we used them for pull-ups.
Yeah.
Well, and it was funny because we were doing
Oh
this.
my.
Yeah, we
Oh
were doing
yeah.
this. So
It was the
yeah,
kids' part. It was raining a little bit.
it was right by
That's
the lake,
right.
and we were actually
Oh my
we were
God,
doing it
yeah.
there, and it was funny because we actually saw another guy that was doing Murph.
Yeah.
Yeah, like another guy running around the lake, and he had like a American flag tank top on or whatever. But like we saw him, and like we kind of shot each other out because
Yeah.
like, oh, we're doing the same workout. What's up, man? I was like, how's it going, right?
Wow. Oh, I totally spaced on that.
And I was, I think I had the weight vest at the time. You had yours.
Yeah.
You had your weight vest. I bought one during the
Both
lockdown.
got that 5'11" one, yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, well, you can use it for other things, and I have used it on other occasions.
You have?
Not
'Cause
many.
I sure should have
Not
not,
many
unless it's just
Like, well, and it's actually not bad for like walks or like hikes because the impact is less. So like when I wear it for a run, like
Yeah.
no, because that's just too much impact on my joints. But I would wear it for like a walk because it does
Yep.
make it more challenging if you're carrying 20 extra pounds.
Yep. Well, it's like, yeah, it can be useful in a lot of ways, but it's like if you actually fucking utilize the thing. I mean, you could say that with everything, but like that's going to be one of the pieces that I'm going to use pretty religiously coming up when I start training for that 50K
Sure.
in Duluth. Shouting that out now because now I can't back out of it because now everybody has
Yeah,
heard
now
that I'm
all of our
fucking
listeners
doing
know.
it. So
We've
yeah.
got a decent amount of listeners.
So yeah, anyways, that's a great way to like accumulate a lot of like volume to get your body acclimated to that extra load. Because then regardless of like what I want to bring on that trail, like if it's just
Sure.
it'll feel a lot lighter. I'm accumulated to that. But yeah, the Murph doing that with the vest, that's one of my favorite workouts of the year.
That's tough, man. That's fucking and like it was funny because I remember I haven't like the 2 years that I did it, like I started doing it and then like did it the year after I didn't rip. And for anybody who doesn't know, when we're doing 100 pull-ups, there's a tendency, and so the CrossFit we do like what kipping pull-ups, right? And there are some people out there like, oh, that's not a real fucking pull-up. It's a gymnastics movement. It's not supposed to be a strict pull-up. There are strict pull-ups in that methodology as well, right? Again, don't be an asshole. Don't think things are black and white. There's always shades of gray. So, but doing 100 of them can cause a little bit of skin breakage on the hands.
Oh yeah.
And so when you tear up on a callus, tear up on your hand, it's called like you ripped it. And it happens to a lot of people. I didn't have that for like the 2 years I did, and then all of a sudden I think like the year after we did it at the park, I tore my hand. I was like, that was the first time I had ripped. I was like, what the fuck? This is how it feels. This sucks. But yeah, no, we did that at the park, man, because it was like it was May, it was Memorial Day, right? So it was end of May. We did the park. And before then, we had all spring we had done kind of these outdoor workouts. We were just kind of trying to do as best as we could, and if it was like particularly warm or cold or wet, we were just in the basement, kind of doing like lunges and whatever else we would potentially do.
A lot of body weight stuff. Kind of pick up the intensity. And again, it was at that point because of or I should say, just our limited access to equipment and facilities. You had to get really creative. So it was all about just staying active, staying healthy, staying fit, just kind of keeping or at least for me, it was like keeping my sanity, for the most part when it wasn't socially acceptable to be out and about or, meet up with people. Like it was a very interesting time, and yet still found a way to be able to prioritize health and fitness throughout that time.
Yeah, and people still, I mean, you still run into a lot of members that come in or prospective members that come in and say, oh, yeah, I really worked out since COVID. And it's like,
Isn't that crazy?
4 years later. But you also take into account, there are people who are slightly more immune compromised or have compromised family members, people that maybe just were, maybe had a bad reaction to something. Maybe they got COVID and have kind of that long COVID, or they had a worse bout than other people. Maybe they took a while to come back from. I don't have all the facts again.
Did you ever get it?
Oh yeah,
You did?
yeah, I did.
2021. What was your experience with like when you did?
So I don't know. Like, again, we're not scientists. We're not epidemiologists.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
I think that's the disease. If you're an epidemiologist, let us know.
Come on the pod.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, for sure. Hell yeah. That'd be dope. I got it, and like relatively healthier individual, especially because we were consistently working out too through that time. So I got it in 2021, and I was pretty sick for like 4 or 5 days. I was like, had the sore throat and had like the fatigue and things like that, and struggled. But then after that, this was still when it was kind of like 14 days. 14 days you can't come. That's your period.
Yeah, like 2 fucking weeks.
Yeah. So what I did was like I know I after like the 4 or 5 day mark, like still had like a couple of days, like I still had like a week left, and I was fine. Like I was tired, I was generally more fatigued, but as far as the other physical symptoms, I was pretty good. I made a little bit like a brain fog, but I feel like that might have just been normal. So I went on a lot of walks. Just tried to move a little bit more because like that does kind of, when we're already kind of coming off of a year plus of kind of having a little more like shelter in place kind of deal or whatever that looked like, you know what I mean? You were kind of inside a lot. It was nice to be able to just go take a walk, and I would just go in nature. Like I wasn't around, it wasn't like going to the mall, you know what I mean? I was going outside and walking around there. Did a lot of walks kind of over by, we had the Wood Lake Nature Center. Did a lot of walks over kind of just by another place over in Salem Park. I forget the name of it now. But yeah, just kind of more of that stuff. And that was the way I stayed
Did
sane.
you get it? Like, did you get the vaccine? Like, did you get COVID
It was
prior or
I
after?
got the vaccine right when they kind of released it.
Okay.
And so you had like 2 shots, I think it was. Like you had to do like 1 shot, then you had to like wait.
Because there was like different ones. There was like Johnson and Johnson, or
Well, I got
whatever
Pfizer,
else.
but it was like you had to do 2 different
Pfizer.
shots. It was
Travis
like
Kelce sponsor.
Nah, I love that shit. Go Travis Kelce. So I got it, but I got it like so. What I think happened was I got COVID because there's like a incubation period, right, of like however many days before it shows up. So you're gonna have it before you know you have it. So I got the vaccine, and then like a couple days later, I was like, I'm feeling really shit, and this is probably not as shitty as I should feel, and I kind of like felt like I had it. I kind of like was like, man, I'm getting tired from like 1 squat. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm getting really gassed.
So you got the vaccine and you tested positive for COVID almost like simultaneously? Like
No, it was like a couple of days later. And so what happened was I contracted it, had the vaccine without knowing that I had contracted it, and then the symptoms showed up like a couple of days later.
Oh, interesting. And then you kind of like battled or like fought that off for like several days before you kind of felt back up to snuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was like it was just kind of ironic, or not ironic, but coincidental perhaps.
Did you have any questions about like going into like taking the shot? Because I know that was a very thing like where a lot of people like coming out, like me personally, like I didn't take it. I chose not to. That was just something I didn't feel either one like was necessary or just like comfortable doing just for my own health. And again, everyone, you can choose whatever you want to do if you wanted to like take it at the time or not. But like, what was your?
I think when people say they've done their own research, I don't believe them because research doesn't look like watching a YouTube video online for 40 minutes. It doesn't look like finding the person that agrees with you and thinking, oh wow, that's an interesting take. It doesn't mean that you find the quickest voice of dissent. Like, oh, everybody else says this, but this person's saying this. I'm going to believe this person. I don't think that's what research means. And so I was very skeptical of that whole, like, that idea of like I did my own research. Like no, you didn't. You don't like you never been like you don't remember what doing research is like. You don't have like fucking peer reviewed journals that you're reading. Stop. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I like I got it because I also like I don't have any reason to like distrust like that kind of like I don't know what the word for it is.
Government.
I mean, I got reason to trust your government for damn sure. I don't believe anybody in Congress right now has my best interest personally at heart. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is kind of the folly of the system that we're
Or
in.
just or like because then you could get into like the big pharma, like what they wanna, I'm just
Yeah,
and
I don't go to see. I
yeah,
think like I don't know like I feel like there's some jokes about like oh I understand like Ron Funch he's a fucking comedian. He's like I know he's like I can understand not believing like not believing in conspiracy theories, but not believing in any conspiracy theories. You think the government's just batting 1,000?
yeah,
And I was
right,
like, so like
yeah,
he's really
uh-huh.
funny in that regard, kind of making a laughter. But I was like,
God
yeah, I was
damn.
like, no, I mean to be honest, man, like I trust science. Like I was like I'm
Mhm.
good. Like after I've actually gotten the vaccine, I haven't had any issues at all. Like I
Mhm.
haven't, and people have, and like obviously it's
Oh
not
yeah.
perfect. You
Mhm.
need to get your boosters. Like even if you get a vaccine for, I mean, but we used to get vaccines for like mumps and like all this other shit and like
Mhm.
flu and all this stuff. Like why don't no one says shit about that, but all of a sudden this thing like oh no, I think that like shut up. You know you don't.
It was definitely.
You're a fucking what do you you're not qualified to talk
Mhm.
about this. Stop. So, anyways, that's
Mhm.
my rant.
Well, because I remember like at that time as well, when everyone was, there was, and rightfully so, you heard a lot of information that was coming out. You're like, what is this? Like, hey, there's this thing like COVID or whatnot. And I remember working at the time, like, all right, is this something I like could be concerned about? And then they started talking about like lockdowns and shutdowns. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, before we knew it, like now it became reality. Like you got the notice, and you're like, wait a second, like everyone's like everything's shutting up shop for like 2 weeks. Like it felt like it was something out of a fucking movie. Like I remember going to the grocery store for the first time, and again at that time it was you had to wear the mask to go anywhere in public. And I remember like walking into a Cub Foods or something like that to go just pick up my ground beef and all my normal nutritional shit, and there was nothing. There was nothing there. It was all gone. It was already taken. All the, ass wipe, paper towels. I mean, it was like,
Yeah,
what
people
the
really were like worried
fuck?
about shitting apparently.
Yeah.
They were
And
like, really? Let me get this.
it was the first time that I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, like what is going on? You could kind of
Hmm.
like first feel like the enormity of it and like the scale of what was, occurring. And like you're trying to navigate that,
Yeah.
like, okay, wait, so like they're telling us that, all right, we're going into lockdown. All right, you need to get like you need to get the shot. You need to, do X, Y, or Z. It was a fascinating time to like have gone through. I mean, just
Yeah.
to like have experienced. Like that's one of those things that we're all going to be talking about when we're,
Hmm.
hey, remember like, oh yeah, back in da da da, going through COVID. Like we lived through that time period in history, and it's just like, I don't know, almost feels like a dream in
Well,
a way.
imagine like the people that were more greatly affected because again, I want to make this very clear to people. Uh, this rings true for a lot of different walks of life, but just because something is not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. So take that, apply it to whatever you can think about. That is an idea, right? So just because COVID's not an issue for you doesn't mean it's not an issue for someone else. So
Oh
keep
yeah.
that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, like I remember it was just like it was like we thought it'd be like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
what did they call it? Like reducing the flatten the curve or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like two
yeah.
weeks. Yep, yeah, fucking 2 weeks.
And
Throw on
so
your
we
mask and
all
you're
thought
good.
it'd be 2 weeks, and we all thought it'd be 2 weeks, and all of a sudden 2 weeks was a month, and then a month was 2 months, and then kind of kept going. And I
Yeah.
think, and I don't know, like, obviously, the way that COVID spread and happened was it's just like maybe COVID wasn't deadly enough for people to like really take seriously in certain respects, and then also I think you get in this situation too. Where it's like people after a while like didn't care, and you can't say like, oh yeah, like come on, like it's kind of like when you're in a big group project and like people are just not doing anything. You can't like convince people. How do you convince people to care, to give a shit? There will always be those people that don't care, that do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you also have to look at the fact that like, well, maybe people that did that, well, it's like maybe they had a small business that was going under, and they're like, if I don't open, if I don't do this XYZ, if I don't lift these restrictions, I'm going to lose my business.
That's what's crazy.
And it's really hard to like, and that's why, dude, life is a shade of gray. You can't be like, even though like I obviously believed in it and like I obviously still do, and it's obviously still impacts people, like how could I sit here and be like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do that, man, like close up your whatever, like you know what I mean? So I understand the desperation as well from a lot of people. And so it was a very interesting time to live through, and especially like I don't know, like of course, like we were both in the wellness industry, and I was like, well, we didn't know how long we were going to be on unemployment. We didn't know like how our gym was going to open up, and there were certain places that were opening up earlier, so you had to wear a mask, and then you'd have like I would go to the gym and like we were all wearing masks, and there's people that would be wearing them under their nose like fucking assholes.
I was one of
you're a fucking asshole.
I was because I mean like at the time I was and again how you approached it. Whatever, you were doing the best with the information that you had at the time.
I think that's what we're all doing. We're doing the best,
yeah, exactly. And you're trying to live by like your values and your thoughts, and what information that you got, whatever. Because it seems as though we're kind of like when that first got brought about, maybe approach it in different manners and like how we did it. Like you chose to get the vaccine, like I chose to not. I was one who was kind of baffled by the like mandates and things that were going on. Like I didn't necessarily agree with like shutting down the like small businesses for the extent that they did, and like how many people suffered because of that, and how many people were you're doing this mask mandate for like an airborne thing that could transmit in those rooms. Like you could take it off in like in airplanes to eat, but then you had to pop it back on. I was like, well, that just doesn't make sense to me. And prioritizing like gyms were getting shut down, or like not talking about like proper sleep and proper nutrition, and like get outside and like be in the sun, get vitamin D. Like there was a lot of people who were like vitamin D deficient, or now you're talking about like we're social animals, and now you're telling people to like isolate. So that's just like where I had come from it. So like when I chose not to get the vaccine, I did get COVID. I remember waking up one night, felt like shit. I mean, it was like, oh, what is this? Had to go into work the next morning because I opened the gym and there was nobody I could contact yet. So I had to go into the gym, do the first class. And by the time I was done, I contacted my manager at the time. I was like, y'all, somebody needs to get here. Because again, at that time, I was, I think, I don't know how many months in, but got tested positive. I went back to my house again. This is just the night prior, woke up like shit. This day, did the class, got tested positive. I remember when I went back home, the only thing that felt comfortable was lying on the floor. Like I didn't want to go on my bed or the couch or anything like you would think that would be comfortable. Yeah. I just fucking lied face down on the floor and power nap for hour and a half, woke up and I was like, oh, I feel good. And just like how differently that hit people. Like I just had a coworker just this last week who got COVID. I think it was her first time getting it, and she got like kind of hit pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't know what her vaccine status or anything like that was. I'm almost positive she had gotten it, but just it was fascinating to see like some people, they got hammered, they were out for and had lingering effects for weeks or like months afterwards. And for some people, like thankfully, gratefully for myself, I was basically good. I felt great like that the very next day, and I think there's a testament to how you prioritize like your health and fitness and how that can help you combat, various things. But I mean, when you got a disease that they're, I don't know, fucking weird.
I think we're gonna fall in that gray zone of like, I mean, there are certain things you can mitigate with like healthy, like proper nutrition, healthy diet, lots of exercise. There are certain things you can mitigate by being a healthier individual. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time that's like, injury based, or like, hey, you recovered really fast from this because of this, like your immune system was very strong because you did this. Mm-hmm. At the same time, like if you get an illness or disease, like it's still gonna fucking hit you.
That's different than like you're lessening with being a healthy individual, your risk of like, all cause mortality because of like cardiovascular illness and disease and all that kind of stuff. But yes, if you get a fucking thing like this, all right, or you just get like the next case of, I don't know, what's one of the like the bad ones? What's like a really bad one?
Oh, what are the other things that happened? Like, so we had
like if something like that hits,
we had like the mad cow disease, mad cow, and like what's one
SARS. Yeah, but like
Whoever, I think COVID was, I got
it
it.
was one of the
Shouldn't say
most like
anything I don't know, but
infectious. I think it was one of the most infectious ones, but the mortality rates were lower than something that was like more deadly. But maybe like a lesser like infectious rate. Like some of those can be like scary. Like we're talking about how we began with like the 28 days later. It's like that stuff's nuts.
you're an infectious
That
disease
stuff's
expert
nuts.
right now listening to this podcast. Let us know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Call us up. We're gonna have you on. We're gonna talk about
But
this.
it was like just like a fascinating case of just like looking at where we are at from like a society and like how we interact with one another because there was so much like tension, between individuals, between families, between friends. It was very divisive as to like, you had individuals that either chose to take or not take the vaccine and how, conflicting those things became. And it was
Yeah.
like I felt like that was like, do you feel like that was like a big like split and like divide, within
1000%, man.
within the US, I mean, for sure.
You had a lot of divisive things happening.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I think Trump's presidency was very divisive as well
It's going
because
to
he
be,
was such a
too.
polarizing figure, and it might happen again.
Dude, he could, yeah.
Um,
What's like? What are you gonna do between him and Biden?
well, it's like, what are we? I just fucking, I
You know?
just, that's why I hate the two-party. That's why I hate the system.
I mean, the whole thing. Can we just like government is just
Yeah.
it's fucking
Well, and a lot of the time,
broken
people
and
in
shady as
Congress-
shit.
Like people in Congress are going to do what they need to do to get reelected and to keep their position rather than actually. Anyways, I don't know enough about it. I don't follow it too closely, to be honest. So I'm not going to touch on it because there are people who listen to this podcast probably way more knowledgeable than I am. They're gonna be like, everything you said is wrong. So I'm not going to say anything. But it's very frustrating, to say the least, to have to choose between, as South Park once said, a giant douche and a turd sandwich.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's just like, it sucks. But anyway, so I mean, he was such a polarizing figure and still is in so many ways.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So I think that contributed a lot to it as well. And then you have, and of course, you have the actual act of it where it's very divisive. It's like you're going to have, because the USA is so massive geographically and also like in terms of population density, like the things that will be beneficial for people in Bozeman, Montana are going to be very different than things that will be beneficial in like Los Angeles, California. Like they're two completely different areas, completely different population centers. So it's like
Different like, ideologies and stuff too. Like,
well, yeah, but it's like if you
what's
talk
going on.
about a governmental, like a federal government shutdown, it's like, okay, well,
state by state.
yeah, it's like, well,
Get that,
it's
too.
gonna be so difficult to one, adhere to all those things, and also then have the people trust those things. And so you were looking at this real big divide between like, not even just like, it's not as clear as like the Civil War with like North and South. It's like, no, you have like people in the same neighborhoods in completely different ways because of different, different ideals they might have. This is not health and wellness at all. Well, it's health and wellness, I guess. It's not fitness.
Is, yeah.
But also neither Kory and I are experts on this, but bear with us. But yeah, I mean, you had very big divides on that, and you had very big divides based on a lot of different things. Especially Trump's presidency, I think, contributed a lot to that because people were already kind of like at each other. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't know, it has made us more polarized in a lot of ways, and you still see those outcomes. I think now, where people are more like, and I think like. I mean, I don't want to talk about social media because I'm going to go on a fucking rabbit hole, but I think people are more akin to believe extremes versus like realize that the truth is somewhere in the gray. And
you can say that about a lot of things.
Right.
Like, I feel like even like politically, right? Like I feel like we're a lot closer in terms of the way that we perceive certain societal issues that are going on, but it's only the polarizing ends of the spectrum, like the very big outliers that have what we think are the biggest voices, but like realistically, like we're all probably a lot closer into the middle than what we are. Dude. And like you just see these
very funny story regarding that. So Abby, our friend Abby we talked about, we're gonna have on the podcast. I mean, she is very like holistic, I would say, is the way I would describe her. Like very into ways of like healing and methods of like fitness and wellness that are like maybe off of mainstream.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting because like I would describe her as like very like open-minded and like I don't know, there's like I used to date a girl in high school that she is now she was like born again Christian, like very, very like big Trump supporter, like very conservative, and like now is kind of like I think less so of a Trump person, less more like a I hate government person, which is kind of interesting because a lot of people gravitate towards that. But it's like still friends with her on social media, and it was really interesting because she had posted something that I had seen Abby post like the day before, and it's like the exact same post. I'm like, you have two people that have come from like very different ideologies, have very different ways of viewing the world, but they believe also like the thing that kind of meets them in the middle. And I saw that, and it kind of like gave me some chills, and I was like, man, we're way too like we tend to believe the worst in everybody. You know what I mean? And there are things that I will never agree with people on, based on how they respond to certain subjects. But at the same time, it's like, man, we're a lot closer than I think.
But that's why I think it's like the beauty of like having those like challenging and hard conversations and have like an open, candid conversation about it. Like for instance, like right now, like we had different approaches to, COVID, and I don't know if that necessarily was anything that I don't know, really like talked about per se. Like
I
as
can't
we're
remember
going,
the time.
but,
Yeah.
it's like okay, that's fine. Like I still love, respect you as a human being. Like we're not we're not gonna have like everything that we're aligned
Yeah.
with. But I think that was such a interesting time period and time frame. And again, when we're talking about things that are going on politically and culturally, we're led to believe that we are super far apart. I oftentimes feel it's again those big polarizing takes like you have to identify with like this or you have to identify with that, and there is no what we're led to believe meeting in the middle. And it's like, man, I just don't feel like that's the case. Like, yeah, we're gonna have some things that we differ on, but like maybe we also align on a lot of other things. And I feel like, yeah, it's just that can be very unfortunate when you have something in particular that just you cut ties with.
Well, and
cut
this
ties
is
with
like
people.
a big theme and a big like cliche of like, oh yeah, like we're so different, but we're also so alike. You know what I mean? Like how many movies have you seen where it's
Yeah.
like, you have the polar opposites, like,
like Remember the
romantic comedies. Yeah, Remember the Titans. And so,
Oh, what a beautiful movie.
and you see all these things play out in like movies, and they're exaggerated to a little bit. But I think that for the most part, if you look at like American politics, and again, I'm not going to do that for too long, so whatever.
No.
But like I think the figures of politics are much more polarized than the actual people that are voting. Or the people that are
Yes.
voting are kind of like, well, like you said, I have two fucking choices, or three. I guess I don't vote.
What is
So
it?
it's
Or
like,
yeah, you're voting for the
yeah.
independent. Like, okay, they're gonna win
well, or yeah, like
because
so
they don't have
four
that political
choices.
party behind them to even like get into
Well,
that
can you
fucking.
imagine though, like if just somehow everybody mobilized to vote for like the, and I don't even know if that'd be better, to be honest. But
I don't know. I don't think this two-party thing though is the fucking answer.
or have two parties but have different candidates you can vote for. Have like a wider array rather than like in France. I know France is not perfect either by any stretch of the
I don't
imagination.
think anywhere is to be
But I
honest.
think I think they have more political parties, and they also like have their presidential election between like multiple different people, not just two.
Well, and I think even like during that, like you have like those debates and stuff. It's like, how the fuck are you supposed to answer a question when you only get like 2 minutes to be able to respond to it? It's like it's
Well,
all
a
just
lot of
like
times they just don't even answer
no
the question,
shit, and they're just
right?
yeah, and you're like, well, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What? It's just fucking dumb. It's so
Yeah.
busted. It's so busted. I remember like
We're
during
so jaded.
Well,
we're only 30 years old. We're so jaded.
Well, I remember during COVID, like this was at a point when again you had mentioned before, but like we were both furloughed, so we like weren't working at the time, and I'm again we both live in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, and my folks live back in Winona, Minnesota, and I just none of my friends at the time were really open to like meeting up. I would offer, be like, yo, let's like meet up at a park or let's
Yeah.
go for a walk. And like some people at the time were just like, and again, however they wanted to approach it, were just wanting to lay low and hold tight. And I was like, all right, well, fuck, all right, I guess I'll just go back. Perfect time to just spend some time with the family. So I went back to Winona, spent about a good 30 days down there, and I thought it was just hilarious at the time. I couldn't work out or train anywhere in Winona, Minnesota, but if I took a 20-minute drive and crossed the Mississippi River into Wisconsin, I could go right there, train
Yeah.
at a gym, and I'm like, what?
Well, Wisconsin has no laws.
It's like-
Wisconsin, you can do anything in Wisconsin. My girlfriend's in Wisconsin. She can probably vouch for this. There's no rules. There's no rules in Wisconsin.
But it was so like I loved it because cool. Now I can actually go train at a gym, and obviously everybody that at the gym, probably had the same mindset and mentality as to how they
Yeah.
were like approaching this, situation. And
Yeah.
but I loved it because it was like, all right, cool. I can go work, prioritize my health and fitness with again other like-minded individuals. But I just thought it was almost comical in a way, to be honest. Like, I could drive 20 minutes, go to a different state, and I like completely different rules,
Oh, yeah.
regulations, and then I have to come back and I like, they're putting like a 10-person limit in like the fucking grocery store or something. I'm like, okay, this is just bananas,
Yeah, it's
and
like
I know
crossing the border from like I don't know, in Europe, it's like you have one country, the next country is completely different,
yeah,
right?
it's odd. It was very
And I
odd.
think a lot of it was like, man, I think a lot of it was like governments like scrambling to kind of think of something. And I'm not gonna shit at governments. Like, there are
I
plenty
am.
of times. Well, that's fair. I guess I could too. Maybe I guess I should. But I mean, but I think there are times where it's like you generally don't have the answers because
Yeah.
you have to remember also people in government are not like, they're not doctors. They're not medical. Like they have people there to help them, but it's like they don't know what the fuck COVID is
Could
like.
you imagine that
So like
job?
a lot of the first however long was trying to figure out what this is and like what effect it had. So a lot of it was preventative, right? So
Tried to be anyway.
right,
I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
Preventative or like looking at numbers, things like that. So I don't know. I think again in general, I think let's look at this from like 1,000 degree perspective is like or 1,000 foot perspective is like people generally try to do the best they can with the information they have.
Yeah.
And I think there are probably, and depending on the area you live in versus Wisconsin versus Minnesota versus Los Angeles versus Montana
You
versus
get that.
whatever,
How you were raised, how you were. You
yeah,
could go really
you're
down.
gonna have
Yeah.
governments that do different things based on what they think is best for either themselves or for their people. Hopefully for their people, but probably often for themselves.
Hmm.
So, again, the demands of the citizens of Idaho will be different than the demands of New York City.
Hmm.
Like it's just a much less populated area. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of the times it was kind of like that. Well, wait, why is this all uniform? And why is this not state individualized? And I can't speak to that. I know that's actually something that's a lot of people conservatives want. It's kind of like more like state led government
I
rather
was
than
going
like
to say,
federal
wait. So
government.
just to clarify on that, you were saying like it should have been, or like you wanted more of like a full. All right, here's what the U.S. is doing versus like state by state, they can make their own, mandates
I
and
think
stuff.
you think you get in dangerous territory when you try to do like state by state, but at the same time, I would have loved maybe like a federal regulation and then like statewide, like okay, here's
Here's
what
the
you
protocols
need to
across
do,
all
and then
states or
states, here's your
something.
freedom, right? Or like here's on a federal level, here's what needs to happen, X, Y, Z. On a state level, you guys are free to decide these other things, right? And maybe that would have been more,
Who knows, hindsight?
but then you have no idea. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Is it just a?
Oh God,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm still here.
yeah. We still here,
The
baby.
recording device was like, "Are you still here?" I was trying to cut us off, honestly.
That was.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, yo, the amount of dumb
So you're
shit
saying
you guys
art-
have said.
It's AI. They're listening in right there. Yep. They're like, oh no,
AI.
we got to shut this down. They can't be talking about
Do you
that.
think this is a question
Sounds
completely off
fucking
topic,
nuts.
but I'm pretty happy with it. Do you think AI will like take the place of like fitness instructors?
No, no,
Okay.
absolutely not. I
Go on.
because it's if you go coaches, fitness instructors, as you said, the personal relationship and that dynamic that I think is oftentimes I don't want to say required because it's not. Obviously, you can like train as your as your own person if you're driven and motivated to be able to do so. But fuck. Yeah, how many times have I heard, oh, yeah, no, I think I'm just going to go do the Peloton for a little bit. I think I'm just going to go do that.
But people have like favorite Peloton coaches.
Or yeah, I guess there's that too. Or like
Well,
they're,
so,
they're
like-
just going to do,
But
whatever.
to your point, you can't just put an AI on a Peloton and have it coach a class. Like people have their favorite coaches that they see.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess that's a win for it.
Yeah. From a coaching side of things, I don't think AI will ever be able to have that, tangible, whatever that dynamic is between two human beings. There's just no way in my mind that they're going to be able to replicate that type of relationship. But then again, I don't know, you watch a movie like Her with Joaquin Phoenix or whatever, and he's like developing this relationship with a robot. Like, I don't think that's all that fucking far off either. Like, how close are we to becoming just like symbiotic with machines and intelligence, and like you're going to be able to go in and get your shoulder repaired just like in 2 seconds if you want to, and then you become that, like, are you going to be able to differentiate that, like the whole AI thing and where that could lead? Like, look at the advancement within technology in just the last 20, 30 years. Like, how the fuck are our monkey brains supposed to be able to like keep up with that shit? Like, internet, when we were a kid, we still had phones that were connected via the fucking landline on the
I
wall.
miss those days.
And now you can
Don't
go
you miss the
put on
days
an
of
Oculus headset and you're in a different fucking world.
Don't you miss the days of people not knowing everything about you at all times?
It was a beautiful time. Yeah.
Like I think of how challenging it is to be a kid these days, and I don't know any like I don't know any kids. Okay, I don't have children. I have no younger cousins. I don't like mentor any kids. So I don't really have that experience too much unless I like interact outside of that. But yeah, you think of like, man, kids that grow up with like just instant connection to everybody on social media, on like whatever, like you can take a picture of someone, upload it to the internet within like 10 seconds.
Like, how old are kids? Like, when did you get your first phone?
So my brother got a pager when he was 13. I was 10 at the time. I believe that was 2001 maybe.
Okay, you were 10, so you would have been.
But I didn't get a phone until I was probably like till I was probably 13 because like it was like
So middle
pagers
school,
were
right?
pagers were a thing for a while. If anybody knows what a pager, like everybody's listening to us and they're below the age of 21, they might know what a pager is.
Shocking.
Pager was like a device where it's like if someone called you, they would call your pager number. You could see, okay, this person called, and then you could go to a phone and call them back. It wasn't like a phone. It was like literally like a device that got you.
It was kind of like your alert.
Yeah, it was basically a notification
Yeah.
tab, but just on a device.
Yep.
And so my brother got one when he was like 13. I think I was 10. So but then it kept advancing so that by the time that I was 13, phones were around. So I think I got a phone when I was like 13, 14.
And is that middle school? Is that high school?
Yeah, like early high school.
Because I got
Or freshman year maybe.
I got mine when I was in middle school, and it was just a classic, like, flip phone.
But you are a little bit younger than I am.
Yeah.
So I'm 32. You're 30. So.
Yep. And at the time, my parents wanted my brother and I to get one. My brother being 3 years younger than me, wanted us to
Younger
get.
than you?
Yeah. Yeah. He looks
Really?
probably. I don't know.
Yeah. No offense to your brother. Shout out your brother.
Like he
Like,
listens
like,
to a fucking
he doesn't-
podcast. There's no.
Well, he
way.
might while he's in the go kart. I don't know. He doesn't look old, but he looked old. He looked like the older brother between the two of you guys. Maybe it was just his demeanor because he was a little bit more like chill than you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not that you're like wild, but like you were like pretty golden retriever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect example. But yeah, we got phones because my brother and I and our friend group, we would just want to ride around on our bikes 24/7 and just like get lost into town. And at the time, prior to us getting a cell phone, it was my parents playing fucking phone tag with my friends' parents. Like, hey, have you seen Corey, Ben, and Nick? Like, oh no, they were just here like 15 minutes ago, but then they said they were going to go down to the Y, and so we'll see. And they couldn't figure out where we were or get a hold of us. And I recognize now, like, yeah, that would probably be fairly, I don't know, useful.
Yeah.
So that's why they wanted us to get one. But to think that was my childhood, and now you see kids who have, and that phone, you only had access to call, and you had to, the limited amount of text or something like that you could send.
Oh yeah.
But now they have access to the entire fucking internet. They can get
Yeah.
on whatever they want, any platform, addicted to social media.
You had Snake back in the day when we were
That was it.
when we had phones.
And now you can get lost playing so many fucking. It's terrifying what
you had no
kids
internet.
have now.
On every text plan. One was T9. If you don't know what T9 is, I really do think you missed out on a certain aspect of life that was just amazing. T9 was the text predictor that was always just so fun to fuck with. But so you had that, and you had like text messages were like I think you had to have a specific plan to get any sort of like free text, and even then it was like you could send like 10. It was like 10 texts, and it was like, okay, well, all of a sudden you're paying much. Like,
Yeah.
my girlfriend has a really funny story of like just I don't know, she got like a phone and was just texting boys all the time or what. She's texting like her friends all the time and like just running up this huge cell phone bill on her parents' plan. And so yeah, back in the day it was like a limited text was like the holy grail. Like if you were a kid and you had, or like a teenager or whatever, you had unlimited text, like you were balling, like you were you were the shit. Because we didn't have that. You talked on the phone for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember I'd be playing my Madden or NCAA video game on the PlayStation, and be just chatting with girls with the phone the phone is on the neck. There's no like speaker.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you're getting the neck
had
crank.
the
You're like, I gotta
neck
switch
crank.
fucking shoulders.
No wonder my traps are so jacked up.
Well, and it's like you think of that again, what we grew up, and then I'm so thankful. I've had this conversation with so many friends and family, and I remember even talking with my grandma, and hearing her childhood and how she was brought up, and I'm so thankful that I feel I was that last generation, and truly the last generation that had access to that level of technology where I wasn't connected to the fucking internet and social media and everything 24/7 like kids are, exposed to now. And you think about as a parent, if, and again, coming from both of us who don't have kids, but I've thought about that, like, all right, if and when there is a day that I become a father, like, how would you navigate that, just landmine of the internet, social media? Do you give them a phone? When do you give them a phone? You don't want them to become socially ostracized if they're the only kid that doesn't have a phone because your parents said that you can't have one and you can't have a Facebook. So now you're not connected, and now you're the weird kid. Like, well, you don't want that, but you also have to understand like the implications of what they do have access to. Do you limit that? And I think you have to have a conversation with them about how that can be just this black hole that can suck you in. Like, everyone's had that and experienced that. If you have a phone where you're like, what the fuck have I been doing for the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes, going through some mindless TikTok reels? Like, that was just 45 minutes of my life that I just pissed away, potentially just kind of scrolling. Like, how much time do you spend in front of a screen? And you look at that screen time, it's insane. What we used to do, what you had to do for entertainment and stuff as a kid or growing up, like our grandparents, like they had to go outside, get creative, be physical, be physically active. And now you can have
They had to roll a wheel with a stick.
Yeah, fucking churn their own butter, like do some
roll that wheel with that stick, Grandma.
Yeah, like how long? I asked this question to a buddy of mine, Dakota. What is the longest amount of time that you've spent in one day just playing a game?
Well, I used to play World of Warcraft, so that's a really loaded question for me.
No, that's what I'm saying. But actually, what?
Probably 7-8 hours.
7-8 hours.
Yeah, bro.
In front of
real and deep in that.
And
shit.
how many people do that now? And people are like, "Well, I don't play video games," but it's like, look at your phone. How many? I asked this question at the gym the other day, and how many people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like if they looked at their screen time and how much time they spent playing a phone game, it's like that's the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of crazy to think about how much time you sit there and spend looking at this.
Well, Kory, they don't spend too much time because our attention spans are so small that even a video game for that long.
They are.
Yeah, and there's a whole other thing. I'd actually love to have a whole episode on this because I think I'm more entrenched in the gaming culture than you might be because I've actually fun fact about me, I competed in video games. In World of Warcraft. My back in college, my guild was one of the top rating guilds in our server.
Yes.
And I also was in the top 20% of players in the nation in League of Legends for a while. So I'm a big nerd, and so I'd love to have a whole episode about kind of this stuff and kind of what it does and how it works. Yeah, a little bit, because there's a psychological feedback loop in gaming that causes people to play more, essentially, that you don't get from things that don't provide an instant reaction. So that's why that's even in fitness, a lot of times you struggle with people adhering to training programs because there's not that instant gratification of oh man, I did a great workout today. Why don't I have abs? Or why don't I have abs?
Versus a video game, you're like, bam, leveled up. Oh, here's the next unlock. Oh, here's the next thing that I can strive to unlock or achieve or get. Or here's the next quest, and bam.
Yeah, if I was in League of Legends and I was really trying really hard and competing, I was well, I won my game. I got 20 points. I got 20. I climbed the rankings. Oh, I got I finally got out of silver. Now I'm in gold. Oh, I'm getting to gold 1. That was the driver. It was you have this ranking system where it's when you're doing your fitness routine, you don't really have that, you know what I mean? Or when you're doing long-term pursuits, you're trying to learn a new skill, a new hobby, you typically don't have that instant satisfaction of oh man, look at what I've accomplished today. It's oh, I did some vocabulary and I'm learning a new language, right? Oh, I might now I know how to say table. I didn't know how to say that before. So it's that works. And that's what pulls people out of kind of that routine of health and wellness or just physical activity is you don't have that same gratification. Hey, you feel good after a workout, but you still look the same. You know what I mean? A lot of times you still feel the same. You might not have that idea of progression.
Well, and it goes to that aspect of delayed gratification, right? Where in those video games, and you look at that, even how they lay out supermarkets and stuff, you just are bombarded visually, and you're so stimulated by all the colors, the movement, the speed, the action, the rewards, the points that come about or whatever else, and you just get addicted to that just train of visual effects and stimulation. You then relate that to health and fitness, like you're talking about that, and it's like, yeah, you don't get that immediate gratification or what you're hoping to, attain from that. The addiction to video games and social media and all those things. I feel like you got to be very cognizant and aware of how you're spending and allocating that time. And again, like that black hole analogy that I talked about or mentioned there briefly is like how quickly you can get sucked into that. Not to say that again, if I mean, shit, now there's kids that they get paid doing that and like pretty fucking well too. They can
yeah,
win
man,
those
you
things,
can
like
well, and there's all sorts of like content creation as well.
Oh,
It's like not only can you be really good if you're a very good personality, you
yeah.
can make a lot of money just literally streaming you playing video games or literally streaming you doing
Or just
XYZ.
doing a fucking TikTok dance.
Yeah, yeah,
It's insane.
and it's I think that attributes more to it because like people will keep going on. Even this podcast is like, hey man, like, I'm not like we're not doing this podcast so we can make thousands and millions of dollars because we're probably not unless some nice things happen to us. But the idea is like we're doing something, but like we never know. Like maybe an episode of ours is like really resonates with people and like hits really big, and all of a sudden like it's what like people on YouTube is like. Well, the idea is like when you're a content creator, quote unquote, you keep making content. And at some point, like maybe you make this awesome video that all gets shared twice or three times, or then 30 times, then 300 times, and 3,000 times, and all of a sudden like it's fucking huge.
That can be, yeah,
right?
that's an interesting part because like do you start just solely seeking out like to make that hit, like versus like you came into it with the intention of like I just want to be having genuine conversation and just discuss a variety of topics, but then all of a sudden like I wonder how many people have recognized like, oh, this all of a sudden made that reel that I made on Instagram or TikTok, I blew up, became little TikTok, Instagram famous for about a half a minute, and then they try to completely alter their course of action that they initially set to in pursuit of how can I replicate that again to be able to get that notoriety or that fame, and now they got lost going down a side road. They didn't stick on the highway, and it's like, man, that's kind of crazy too.
Well, I think that goes with the whole idea of like, okay, well, you do something for the passion of it rather than the outcome for it.
Yeah.
Because like I think those happen by accident. Those massive like I really does like if you're like, oh man, I need to like make this like big hit. Like I think if you put in work to something, like obviously like we bought this audio mixer that helps our sound quality, that makes it sound much better, so we're not like. So when we interview someone, it doesn't sound like I'm 20 feet away in the fucking back.
It wasn't that bad.
It sounded like I was 20 feet away.
I had a couple people that were like, nah, it wasn't too bad.
Okay,
it wasn't too bad.
Well, thanks, people that talked to Kory. So ideally, I think like you're doing something for the passion of it, and like that passion will fuel that quality, right? We like doing this. We did not need to buy this.
No.
But it sounds better. I like it more.
Yep.
That makes us like we're both really excited to record.
Yep.
Because we're like, okay, cool. We have this fucking. We have like new microphones. Like we like this because we're passionate about it. Like if this episode gets 20 plays, whatever. We're gonna make another one next week.
Yep.
We're gonna make another 2 next week. Whatever.
Keeping them coming.
Because we're doing it because we enjoy this, and because we also probably enjoy quality time together, which we don't really get. Aww. I know, buddy. So I think like in that regard, if you're doing something for the sole outcome of it, I think that is that extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Right. And like one in like trying to make like viral stuff, that's never you're never guaranteed anything. It has to be intrinsic. It has to be something that you enjoy doing because you're gonna keep doing it. In much the same way that like if you are doing an exercise regimen because you want to do like look a certain way and that's it. There's no other intrinsic. You don't like exercise. You hate exercise. You just want to be looking fresh. That might last for a while. You might end up looking like you might end up getting that 6-pack or whatever. But if you don't truly enjoy what you're doing, like eventually you're gonna get bored and tired of it and do something else or switch gears or like you're gonna fall off. Yeah. In similar ways, like I think if people are trying too hard to make something successful, it shows. Like if all of a sudden Kory and I just start making clickbait podcasts of like, this is what QAnon said last week. Like, yeah, I don't know. It might get more clicks because it's clickbait. It's something that's like a massive topic that people have all these fucking opinions on, and like, we could do that, but eventually I think you would see the lapse in quality because we don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk about what's a big topic of conversation these days.
QAnon.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
No.
But like, what's like another one? Like, I don't like. It's just. But I don't want to talk about. I want to talk about this. I want to talk with you. I want to talk about fitness and like and health and try to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you go that route, like you're going to end up just not doing it because you won't give a shit. Like think about. For me, I always think about the best way to curtail crime, or one of the best ways to curtail crime is like investing in like public school systems. In my opinion, that's a whole other ball game. We won't talk about that. But like when I was growing up in public school system, right? I went to Minneapolis public schools. Like anybody can tell you, I have a lot of friends that now teach there in the school system.
That's a tough job.
It's underfunded,
no shit.
Underappreciated. Yep. Teachers aren't paid enough. All this shit.
It should be one of the highest regarded professions.
My God,
it really should be.
If you're listening to your teacher, you are so fucking underappreciated. I'm so sorry.
100%.
And so like. But I remember growing up and I was in classrooms with like 40 kids, 45 kids. Our desks are like half on, half off because like some motherfucker somehow broke it. They're like carved into it with like a knife. I'm like, who has a knife that's carving? Who is doing this? But there's no sense of ownership. There's no sense of responsibility because your stuff is not nice. You don't give a shit. Versus if you have like nice things and like, you actually care about the ownership, like you're going to do better. In much the same way, like if you actually care about the product you're putting out and care about like your job and like your whatever, like you're going to do so much better performance. Your performance will be much better, right? Like I care about my job or in studio, I care about that studio, I care about the members there, I care about what we offer as a product, and it makes me a better coach by 1,000 miles. We've all had that person in our lives, or like I've heard horror stories of people that like I went to Orange Theory or I went to like a gym out in like Memphis, like whatever, and they're like, yeah, this coach just sat in their phone and didn't say anything, like, or like this person just did this and like didn't fucking like say hi to me or like whatever, and I hate that shit, you know what I mean? But that's people that don't care. That are checked out for whatever reason. They're not passionate about it or whatever, but they don't care. I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, and you bring up like a really good point is like, and I'm just so speaking of, gaming, how we were talking about that. I've never been really a big gamer. When we get to that topic of conversation a little bit more in depth, there was a couple instances in which I very much recognize like I am spending way too much time on this video game right now, and I'm not doing the things that I really want to be doing or what I truly value to my core and who I identify as. So we'll broach that at another time. But one thing that I've been doing now is getting into a lot more reading, and I've always gone through periods of time. Oh, I'm reading like 6-7 different books right now because I like to go like I just want to do like I go all in. I'm fucking. I go through those phases and I'm like, this is one of the things that I've like wanted to very much be diligent about, and like I'm just going to read a section or a chapter of a day going through these books. And obviously I'm a coach. I pride myself on that, and I always want to try to improve my skill set in being a coach in all respects. And one of the things that I just came across that I really resonated with is finding that connection point between your passion and your purpose. And I think one of these elements of that being this podcast is something that, again, we're passionate about. Our purpose is to, I don't want to speak for you, but as a coach, I value another person's successes more than my own. I want you to be able to succeed even more than myself. That's not to say I'm going to still, have my own pursuits and my own aspirations and where I want to bring my health and my fitness. But what I truly enjoy is seeing other people's success in that. And I think, we can probably both resonate on that to some degree. And I think that this podcast is a culmination of that, another avenue in which that we can get our voices out. And again, this is that intersection between our purpose and our passion,
Purpose and passion. Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Kory, that is quite the way to end the episode.
Did we start this one with accents?
Ah, yes. And now we are finishing it with accents.
That's not the Tommy Shelby one, though.
No. Right. So. No,
there it is. Yeah, no.
Fuck, I can't do it. Okay.
I don't really have accents. I can't really do them. I can do like,
Right.
it's not an accent. It's
Going to do the accent
an
this time.
impersonation. No, what the fuck
Fucking
is it?
Billy Kimber is going to come here with 40 men,
Kimba.
try to take his guns out, shoot you all down. What we'll do now? No, I can't fucking do it.
Is it impersonations? Is that maybe it? Like where you can kind of
Impressions.
do
Yeah.
impressions,
Impressions, impersonations. I think they both work.
Yeah, like Stitch or like Scooby Doo. I can't really do the accents. I don't think though. That's not really my game.
What's your Scooby Doo impression?
Waggy.
That was pretty good.
Not bad, you know.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Stitch, you know, is like Ohana means family.
Oh.
Family means no one gets left behind or forgotten.
How many times have you seen that movie?
Not a lot. Dude, it's like the one line I know.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
on that note.
we'll do an entire podcast episode where me talking in an Irish accent and you talking in the Stitch voice. That sounds great. People want to listen to that.
Especially with this new updated audio quality. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So, in Irish accent, Kory, what was your little ending thoughts here? Your final thoughts on the podcast today, the episode?
Well, not in an Irish accent. This is just straight Midwestern Minnesota boy.
Oh
here.
man! Every time I say like roof, or no, not roof. Road. Road.
See, I don't
Flat road.
I don't really think I have much of a Minnesotan accent, but there it was right there.
You just said it.
I know. I think that's because
you
it's
try?
like triggered right now. You know what I mean?
Triggered for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like I'm in that maybe mindset, but
You're past your threshold. You're past your Minnesota threshold.
especially when I'm back in Winona, then I really do
yeah,
recognize
sure.
it. But when I lived out in Boston, most people, when I told them that I was from Minnesota, they were like, "Oh, I didn't necessarily hear that per se."
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyways, in terms of the podcast, I've just really appreciated and have enjoyed the continued growth of this, and I hope for any of you all out there listening, geez, there's that O again right there. See, now it's in the back of my brain.
I've triggered you. I'm sorry.
You have. But like I said, the intersection between Croy and I's passion and purpose, this is something that we've again wanted to continue to be able to build and want to improve upon, and we hope that you guys have gained a little value from this and enjoy our conversations and our approaches and thoughts, viewpoints on particular topics, and just have enjoyed the ride thus far and I'm very excited to see where things continue to grow. So, and thank you again, because we want to do this and share our voices, and I appreciate that you guys listen. So any and all the feedback that you guys do provide in our classes, the comments, whatever that it might be, it is very appreciated, and we're taking that into consideration to continue to build and grow this.
Yeah, I love it. We actually had someone comment on one of our Spotify episodes the other day, and I was like, "That's awesome." I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So they commented on about the New Year's resolutions and the goal setting episode, which I think was really good. So yeah, keep them coming, y'all. Again, email us at theaveragebrosgympodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at averagebrosgympodcast, as well as X/Twitter. Yeah, I said it like that.
Yeah, that's probably more appropriate.
AVG Bros Gym Pod, AVG Bros Gym Pod as well. But yeah, reach out. Like any questions, we love Q&A. I'll probably do some more Q&A pretty soon.
That'd be fun.
I think that'd be a good one to do.
Some guest episodes too.
Yeah, guest episodes as well. We're gonna have our friend Abby on the show.
You guys are gonna love her.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
That one's gonna be fun.
I hope it won't amp her up, and then she's just like,
No,
it's like this is terrible. I hate this, Croy. I hate this, Kory. Why did you invite me on the show? No, she's gonna be great.
Oh, that's gonna be so fun. That's gonna be so fun.
I can't wait. So, anyways, friends, thanks so much for listening wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or of course YouTube, so you can see our faces.
Hey.
I don't have enough USB plugins, so I had to turn off the light. I have a ring light, like a light that plugs in this thing here. Yeah. I had to turn that off because I have too many USB plugins now with the mixer. But
I want to hear the comments.
Maybe I'll get like a ring light, a standing ring light or something. I don't know.
You're the tech savvy one. I'm most certainly not.
Yeah, sure. That's what I am.
Well, 100% you are.
I mean,
I'm not tech savvy at all.
I can hook up a mixer and that's about it. But I also,
is it plugged in? Unplug it.
Are you really?
That's me. Jesus turn Christ. It on, turn it off. That's about it. Otherwise, phone for help.
Bro, come on.
Yeah, call the IT guy.
Okay, cool. We actually could call someone and put them on the podcast because we have this mixer where we have a phone connected. So
when we do one of our maybe our sports tier brackets or something like that, or movie brackets, we'll take a caller.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's not live, but sure.
Yeah. That's okay. Well,
what do you think? Do you think this is a radio show? Jesus. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day. And catch us on the flip side.
Catch us on the flippity flop.
Flippity floppers.
Is that an office thing? I think that might be an office thing.
I don't know anymore.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna fade out over this when we're editing it.
Yeah. Applause break. Hey.
Hey, applause. I could hit it, but it's too loud. All right, y'all. Thanks again. Talk soon. Goodbye.